Completed crocheting the main piece. Now we'll move on to joining. First, connect the front left and right pieces with the back piece. Then attach the sleeves to the underarm area. Finally, we'll crochet the edging. Let's start by joining the front and back pieces. Here, I'm demonstrating with a sample, and at this point, I've already marked the connection positions. Now I'll explain further. First, connect the left front piece. Place the back piece with the wrong side facing up, which is the side without the stitch marker. Have the right side of the left front piece facing up, and place it on top of the back piece. Align the inside edge with the neckline side. Match up the top of the front piece with the shoulder area of the back. Make sure the number of pattern repeats corresponds. At the first and last stitch, use a stitch marker to secure them in place. Then find the starting point on the front piece. Mark the first stitch at this side edge, which corresponds to the starting edge of the back piece. Make a mark. Note: don't pick up the stitch on the turning chain here on the back piece. The turning chain is made of 3 chains. Starting from the 4th stitch, which is the very first edge stitch of the foundation chain, make a mark. Next, align the 2 pieces row by row. Find the last row of the front body, and secure it to the corresponding row on the back piece. This helps maintain symmetry when connecting. You can also mark a few more points here for alignment. Once everything is secured, begin connecting. Connect on the wrong side. Turn the pieces to the wrong side. We'll start by connecting the body section. We'll use a hook here, working single crochets and chains to connect. Pick up the yarn again. To make it clearer to see, I'll use a different color for demonstration, but during actual crocheting, continue using the main color yarn. Make a knot with the yarn, leaving a loop. Insert the hook into the first stitch marker, which is right at the turning chain here. Pick up both pieces at the same time. Draw the loop through. Adjust slightly. Then make 1 chain, which serves as the turning chain for the single crochet. This turning chain does not count as a stitch. Insert the hook into the same hole below. Work a single crochet. Insert the hook into the corresponding position. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. There are now 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over, and draw through in once. 1 single crochet is now complete. This is the first single crochet. This stitch marker can be removed. The next 3 chains are connected. 1, 2, 3. The front piece below is worked in double crochet. Insert the hook into the stitch of the double crochet here. The back piece here is at the turning chain. Pick up at the 3rd braid of the turning chain. You can see a small hole here, which is also for the next row of double crochets. Insert the hook into this hole. The hook now picks up 2 pieces at the same time. Work 1 single crochet. Yarn over and draw through the loop on the hook. Then yarn over again, and pull through all the loops on the hook at once. Complete the single crochet. Continue down with 3 chains connected. The back is at the turning chain position for the double crochet. Pick up at the small hole on top of the turning chain. Insert the hook into the stitch of the double crochet. Work 1 single crochet correspondingly. 3 chains at the back. Insert the hook into the stitch at the back double crochet position. At the turning chain position, pick up the small hole of the 3rd chain. Work single crochets 1 by 1 correspondingly. Connect with 3 chains between the single crochets. Repeat this process. Continue connecting downward all the way to the stitch marker position. Once reaching the corresponding stitch marker, pick the corresponding position of the edge stitch downward. At the turning chain position, pick the 3rd chain position. Insert the hook into the double crochet. Work 1 single crochet correspondingly. This way, the body sections of the front and back pieces are connected completely. Proceed downward to fasten off the yarn. First secure with 1 chain. Leave a little yarn tail. Then cut the yarn. Pull tight. The beginning and ending yarn tails can be woven inside the piece. The stitch marker can be removed. Moving downward, we'll connect at the back shoulder area. Here, work a single crochet to connect. Pick up the yarn again. Similarly, I'm using another color for demonstration. During actual crocheting, use the main color yarn. Make a knot with the yarn. With the wrong side of the back piece facing you. Insert the hook into the stitch marker on the right side. Pick up both pieces at the same time. Draw the loop through. Adjust slightly. Make 1 chain as the turning chain for the single crochet. Similarly, the turning chain for the single crochet does not count as a stitch. The stitch marker can be removed. Move downward and insert into the same hole. Work 1 single crochet. While crocheting, place the starting tail above the hook. Weave it along the texture of the piece. Position for the following pattern. Pick up the stitch. Work corresponding single crochets. Pay attention to pick up both pieces at the same time. Chain space position. Pick up the hole below it. Crochet the single crochet. Follow this method. To finish this row, when reaching the next stitch marker, insert into the edge stitch. At the corresponding position, work 1 single crochet. The stitch marker can be removed. Proceed to fasten off the yarn. Weave the yarn tail into the piece. This connects the left front piece with the back piece. The right front piece can be connected. In the same way, the method is quite simple, so I won't repeat the demonstration. That's all for connecting the front and back pieces. Next, connect the sleeve piece. Once completed, attach the entire sleeve to the underarm area. First, connect the sleeve piece. The method is the same as connecting the front and back body pieces. Use a hook to connect with single crochets and chains. Pick up the corresponding piece. Face the first row of double crochet texture, with the neat side facing you. This side is the right side of the sleeve. Mark any position on the right side. Fold the sleeve in half downward. Connect on the wrong side. The wrong sides of the pieces should both be facing outward. Match up the beginning and ending of each row. Locate the sleeve. Find the last row of the increasing section on the sleeve's edge. This is where the pattern is left. Place a marker here. When connecting the pieces, connect up to this position. The following decreasing section needs to be joined at the underarm area. From the chain space at the beginning and ending of the turning chain, insert the hook and crochet. From here onward, pick 1 stitch at the edge of each row. Work single crochets correspondingly into each stitch. Connect with 3 chains between each 2 single crochets. At the double crochet position, insert the hook into the stitch. At the turning chain position, insert the hook into the 3rd chain space. The technique is the same as connecting the front body piece. It's quite simple, so I won't demonstrate it here. You can complete the connection of the sleeve pieces on your own. Pay attention to the corresponding positions after connecting. No need to cut the yarn. Next, continue connecting at the underarm area. Here I've already connected the sleeve pieces. Now move down and connect the sleeves to the underarm area. At this point, the sleeves are still worked from the wrong side. Pick up the front and back pieces. The wrong sides of both pieces are facing outward. The parts of the sleeves that haven't been connected yet match the underarm areas of the front and back pieces. Locate the last row of the sleeve. Find a more centered position. Align it with the edge where the back shoulder is connected. Use a stitch marker to secure it in place. Below, leave the area of the sleeve where the pattern is. Match it with the edge that connects to the body. Secure it in place. Then, roughly align the sleeve with the underarm area, and connect them accordingly. A hook is also used here. Work single crochet and chains to connect. A slip stitch technique is also used here. First, pick up the previously connected point. Make one single crochet. Mark the stitch where the single crochet was made. Then chain 3. Move downward along the edge. Connect each stitch in sequence. The following connection positions are not fixed. As long as the piece stays flat, and the positions roughly correspond, the joining method remains the same from here on, so I won't explain in detail. Complete the connection at the underarm area. Between these two single crochets, leave about 3 chains of space. After finishing the last stitch, chain 3. Then pick up at the starting stitch marker. Hook a slip stitch. Insert the hook into the hole of the stitch marker. Yarn over and draw through. Draw through all loops on the hook at once. Slip stitch completed. Finally, cut the yarn. And weave the yarn tail inside the piece. That's how the sleeve is connected. For the other sleeve, just follow the same method to connect. I won't repeat the demonstration. Up to this point, the connection part is explained. The connection of the pieces is completed. Now we'll proceed to crochet the edging. The edging is divided into 2 parts, the front band edging and the cuffs edging. Among them, the front band edging is done in one go, starting with the left front piece. Then crochet up to the neckline. Then to the back shoulder. And finally to the neckline and front band of the right front piece. Lastly, we'll reach the hem. The cuff's edging is done in 2 rounds. First, crochet one cuff, then crochet the other cuff. Let's start with the front band edging. A total of 5 rounds. In addition to the stitch patterns used before, we'll also use SC2 in 1 here, and the CH3SL picket. Please watch my demonstration. Here, I'm demonstrating with a sample. Pick up the yarn in the corresponding color. Here, I'm using a few random colors for demonstration. Refer to the actual project or chart for specific colors. Make a slip knot with the yarn. Leave a loop with the right side of the left front piece facing you. Locate the first row edge. This is where the double crochet turning chain is. Insert the hook into the entire turning chain. Pull the loop through. Adjust slightly. Then make 1 chain as the turning chain for the single crochet. Note that this turning chain does not count as a stitch. I won't repeat this in the following steps. Next, insert into the same hole. Make 1 single crochet. While crocheting, remember to weave in the yarn tail. Mark this stitch. Go down to the 3rd chain of the turning chain. Insert into the small hole. Make 1 single crochet correspondingly. The next is a double crochet position. Pick up the entire double crochet with your hook. Make 2 single crochets correspondingly. After completing, pick up at the top of this double crochet. Make 1 single crochet correspondingly. This double crochet position counts as 3 single crochets. Go down to the turning chain position. First, pick up the entire turning chain. Make 1 single crochet correspondingly. Then insert into the 3rd chain. Insert into the small hole. Crochet 1 single crochet. At this turning chain position, 2 single crochets are made. Next, at the double crochet position, pick up the edge and crochet 2 single crochets. Then pick up the double crochet and make 1 single crochet. At the turning chain position, first pick up the edge and crochet 1 single crochet. Then pick up the small hole of the 3rd stitch. Crochet 1 single crochet. Continue by making 3 single crochets in 1 row. And 2 single crochets in the next row. Continue crocheting downward for a certain distance. After crocheting for a while, take a look whether the completed part is flat. If it's not flat, you can adjust according to the actual situation. Adjust the number of stitches per row as needed. As long as the front band piece stays flat. Continue crocheting following the pattern or adjust as you go. When reaching the last 2 rows of the body, we'll need to increase stitches on top of the last row later. So let's adjust the stitch count here. First, pick up the edge of the turning chain. Crochet 2 single crochets. Then pick up the chain space and crochet 1 single crochet. Then pick up the edge of the last row of double crochets. Crochet 2 single crochets. Then pick up the top part, the stitch of this double crochet. Make a SC2 in 1. This increases 2 single crochets in 1 chain space. 1, 2. Completed a SC2 in 1. Moving forward is the pattern position. Here, pick up the stitch of the double crochet, and work a single crochet. When meeting a yarn tail from color changes, place it on top of your hook. Weave it following the piece's texture. At the chain, pick up the hole underneath and work a single crochet. Repeat this process. Keep crocheting all the way to the chain space of the turning chain. Finish this chain space. Then continue downward at the turning chain. Pick up the edge. Work 1 single crochet. Then pick up the hole above and work another single crochet. Here is at the stitch of the double crochet. Insert and crochet. Once completed, you'll reach the DC2 tog position. First, pick up the edge stitch and make 2 single crochets. Then pick up the decrease stitch and make 1 single crochet. At the turning chain here, correspondingly make 2 single crochets. At the decrease, correspondingly make 3 single crochets. Repeat this process. Finish this side. If the piece is not flat, adjust the stitch count accordingly. Moving downward, my sample has reached the edge of the last row on the front piece. First, pick up the edge stitch and correspondingly make 2 single crochets. Then you'll reach the joining position. Here, pick up the chain space where it's connected. Make 1 single crochet. Continue picking up the adjacent position. Crochet a single crochet into the connected chain space. Once completed, you'll reach the back shoulder position. Here, pick up the edge. Make 2 single crochets. Moving downward is the double crochet edge. Pick up the stitch and correspondingly make 3 single crochets on the edge. Then you'll reach the pattern position. First, pick up this chain space and make 1 single crochet. Then pick up the stitch and crochet a single crochet. After that, pick up the double crochet and chain space alternately. Work single crochets correspondingly. Keep crocheting until reaching the back shoulder position on the other side. Now you've reached the back shoulder on the other side. Use the same method. First, pick up the chain space and make 1 single crochet. Then pick up the edge, including the turning chain and double crochet. Correspondingly make 2 single crochets and 3 single crochets. At the joining position, pick up the chain space where it connects. Make a single crochet. One single crochet has already been made here. Pick up on the left side and make a single crochet. After completing, move to the right front piece. Similarly, pick up the edge and crochet single crochets accordingly. The method is the same as for the left front piece. When you reach a corner, work a SC2 in 1. This means the edge of this row where the neckline pattern is left. At the corner of the right front piece, there is a turning chain. Pick up the top of the turning chain, and work a SC2 in 1. Meaning you make 2 single crochets in the same position. At the turning chain on this side, correspondingly make 3 single crochets. At the double crochet, correspondingly make 2 single crochets, matching the other side symmetrically. The stitch technique is quite simple. I won't repeat the demonstration here. You can complete the edging on the right front piece by yourself. Now we've reached the first row edge of the right front piece. First, pick up a stitch and work 1 single crochet. Then, pick up the edge and work another single crochet, matching the starting position. Later, when you reach the corner, pick up the chain space on the edge here. That is the insertion point for the double crochet. Work a SC2 in 1. After completing, crochet along the edge of the turning chain. The adjacent position is a chain. Insert into the large space under the chain here. Pick up the chain. Work 1 single crochet. Then pick up the remaining half of the chain at the pattern position. Like this, 1 chain. Work 1 single crochet. Later, when you reach the chain position, there are 2 chains here. Correspondingly make 2 single crochets. After completing, continue picking at the pattern position, the remaining half of the chain. Work 1 single crochet. Work single crochets into each chain position going down. 1 chain corresponds to 1 single crochet. At the pattern position, pick up half of the chain and work 1 single crochet. Repeat this process. Continue crocheting downward. When you reach the connection point, pick up the center position of the connection and work 1 single crochet. Continue crocheting according to the pattern afterward. Finish this pattern position. Work 1 single crochet into the adjacent position going down. Later, when reaching the chain corresponding to the turning chain, here, pick up the outer 2 threads of the chain. Work 1 SC2 in 1. This is another corner. Finally, join with a slip stitch at the stitch marker position. Insert into the hole of the stitch marker. Yarn over, draw the yarn through. Pull through all loops on the hook in once. Complete the slip stitch. After joining here, there will be a braid like this. This is the braid formed by the slip stitch. The slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch. Tighten this braid to prevent extra stitches later. So the first round of crocheting the front band is done. Crochet round 2 downwards. On this round, at the left front piece, we need to leave a buttonhole. Increase stitches at the 4 corners. I'll demonstrate the method using this small sample. First, make one chain as the turning chain. Then pick up at the marked stitch. Correspondingly make one single crochet. Mark it. Then pick up single crochets along each stitch below. Work one single crochet into each stitch. Crochet all the way to the edge of row 4. At this row's edge, make a mark. Now at the edge of row 4, proceed to leave a buttonhole. The stitch marker can be removed. First, crochet one single crochet, then 2 chains. Skip 2 single crochets underneath at the same time. 1, 2. Pick up the next single crochet position, and work a single crochet. This way, a buttonhole is left. This buttonhole corresponds to row 4. The front band needs a total of 5 buttonholes. Now one is already completed. Continue crocheting downward. The finished product will follow the pattern of leaving one buttonhole every 10 rows. If you adjusted the row count yourself, the buttonhole positions can also be evenly distributed. Note: the position of the last buttonhole must be below the neckline, at the edge of the last row of the front armhole. We can also mark the buttonhole positions in advance. Here, I'm demonstrating with a sample. The number of buttonholes is small, and I've already marked the positions. Continue crocheting downward. When reaching the row corresponding to the buttonholes, first, pick the adjacent position and make one single crochet. Then make 2 chains. Skip the next 2 stitches underneath. Pick the edge of the next row and work single crochets. Crochet into each stitch in sequence afterward. Finish crocheting this side. Move down to the last buttonhole. At the edge of the previous row, start by working 2 single crochets here. Then proceed to make the buttonhole. The stitch marker can be removed. Skip the next 2 single crochets underneath. Move on to the corner. You can see that a SC2 in 1 was made here earlier. Pick the increase placement downward. Make a SC2 in 1 correspondingly. Pick each of the 2 stitches from the increase. Work a SC2 in 1. Continue picking up stitches after completing. Work single crochets into each stitch evenly. Finish crocheting the remaining part. No need to make buttonholes anymore. Just work evenly without increasing or decreasing. The method is simple, so I won't explain in detail. Keep crocheting downward. When reaching the corner of the right front, similarly, pick up the 2 stitches at the corner. Work 2 SC2 in 1. Continue picking up stitches after completing. Work single crochets evenly without increasing or decreasing. When reaching a corner position afterward, correspondingly work 2 SC2 in 1. For all other positions, work single crochets correspondingly. Repeat this process. Finish crocheting the remaining part. Arrived at the starting stitch marker. At the previous corner, work 2 SC2 in 1. Finally, slip stitch at the marker position. And tighten the slip stitch. This completes round 2. Since the next round requires a color change, break the yarn here. The yarn tail can be woven during the crocheting of the next round. Next, crochet round 3. Pick up the yarn again. Refer to the corresponding chart for the specific color. Tie it into a knot. Find the starting marker from the previous round. Begin with a single crochet at this marker. Remember to weave in the yarn tail while crocheting. Mark this stitch. Work a chain space in the next stitch. Skip the next single crochet underneath. Pick up the next single crochet. Crochet 1 single crochet correspondingly. Continue working a chain space afterward, while skipping the next single crochet underneath at the same time. Pick up the following single crochet. Crochet 1 single crochet correspondingly. Skip 1 stitch and work a single crochet with 1 chain between each 2 single crochets. Repeat this process. Continue crocheting downward. When reaching the buttonhole position, crochet a single crochet here following the pattern. First, match the corresponding position. Work 1 single crochet. Then 1 chain afterward. Here, skip 1 space and move to the chain area. Pick up the braid of the chain. 2 strands on the edge. Crochet 1 single crochet correspondingly. Continue with 1 chain after completion. And skip the adjacent single crochet. Pick up the next position to crochet. At the buttonhole area, it's still. Skip 1 stitch and work 1 single crochet when reaching the chain of the buttonhole. Pick up the 2 strands on the edge of its chain. Then crochet the single crochet. Follow this method. Continue crocheting downward all the way to the corner. Moving downward to the buttonhole position. Skip 1 stitch here. Just reach the SC2 in 1 position, which means 4 single crochet positions. Work single crochets into each corresponding stitch, with 1 chain between each 2 single crochets. No need to skip a stitch below this chain. After completing, continue picking the corresponding positions. Crochet single crochets and chains. Later, after finishing the chains, skip 1 stitch accordingly below. Pay attention. Only when crocheting chains at the corner. No need to skip a stitch. At all other positions. After finishing the chains, you need to skip 1 stitch before crocheting the next single crochet. Repeat this process. Work this round completely. Later, when reaching the last corner position, work 4 single crochets into each corresponding stitch, with 1 chain between each 2 single crochets. Join with a slip stitch at the marked stitch position after completing. And tighten it. This completes round 3. The next round requires a color change. Here, break the yarn. The yarn tail can be woven during the crocheting of the next round. Now work round 4. Pick up the new yarn again. Refer to the corresponding chart for exact color. Find the stitch marker position. Start here with a single crochet. While crocheting, remember to weave the yarn. Mark this stitch properly. After completing, pick up each single crochet and the chain space. Work single crochets correspondingly into each stitch. Keep crocheting until you reach this corner. Once you reach the corner, there are 4 single crochets here and 3 chains. We'll make an increase in the middle chain. First, pick up the stitch and the chain space. Work 3 single crochets correspondingly into each stitch. When you reach the middle chain, insert into the large space below the chain. Make a SC2 in 1. After completing, continue picking up the single crochet and the chain. Work even with single crochets. At the next corner position, pick up the middle chain. Correspondingly make a SC2 in 1. For all other positions, work single crochets into each stitch accordingly. Follow this method. Finish crocheting the remaining part. When you reach the last corner, first, work correspondingly into each stitch. When you reach the middle chain, make a SC2 in 1 at the corresponding position. Work correspondingly into the remaining part. Finally, join with a slip stitch at the marker position. And tighten it. The next round requires a color change. Break the yarn. This completes the 4th round. Next, work the 5th round. This round needs to be crocheted with a CH3SL picket. Pick up the yarn again. Refer to the actual project or chart for details. At the marker position of the previous round, start with a single crochet. Remember to weave in the tail? Place a marker. Pick up the adjacent stitch below. Work a single crochet. Work the next picket. Begin with 3 chains. After completing, pick up the stitch underneath. Pick up the front loop of the stitch. And the back strand of the stitch. Make a slip stitch. Complete a CH3SL picket. Pick up the adjacent stitch below. Work 5 single crochets evenly. After completing, make a picket. Start with 3 chains. Then pick up the front loop of the stitch. And the back loop of the stitch. Make a slip stitch. After completing, continue picking up adjacent stitches. Work 5 single crochets. Between these 2 picots, there are 4 single crochets spaced apart, plus the single crochet underneath the picket. This equals a distance of every 5 stitches. Make a picket, and the picket should be placed on the 5th stitch of these 5. Continue working downward following this pattern. Keep going with crocheting. No increases needed at the corners for this round. Just work each stitch accordingly. After completing the last picket, let's check the remaining stitch count. If there are fewer than 5 stitches left, then work the remaining part one by one correspondingly. Crochet single crochets into each stitch. Finally, join with a slip stitch at the marker position. For now, don't pull the slip stitch too tight. Proceed to fasten off the yarn below. First, stretch the loop. Leave a yarn tail of about 5 centimeters. Cut the yarn. Then from the marker position, count 2 chains to the left. Insert the hook from the back of this chain. Hook the reserved yarn tail. Pull it out from the back. Then from the back, insert into the slip stitch chain, which is the chain below the yarn tail. Pick the half stitch at the highest position. Insert. Draw the yarn through. Adjust slightly. The stitch marker can be removed. The final yarn tail can be woven into the piece. This completes the 5th round. At the same time, the edging for the front band has been explained. Next, we'll work on the sleeve edging. Here, we'll also crochet 5 rounds. The stitch technique is similar to that of the front band, except there are no corners here. No increases are needed. On the first round, pick the chains and crochet correspondingly into the remaining half of the pattern. Repeat. For the next 4 rounds, pick the stitches respectively and crochet. The stitch technique remains the same. I won't repeat the demonstration here. You can directly refer to the chart for crocheting. That concludes the explanation for the sleeve edging. And that also finishes the explanation for the main part. The main piece is now completed. Next, we'll make the accessories. First, let's make the pocket decoration patch. The crochet method for the pocket decoration patch is similar to edging, except here we work back and forth, while edging is worked in rounds. The row count here has changed to 6 rows. The crochet method remains the same. I won't demonstrate it here. I'll use a completed sample to explain. First, work the corresponding chains. Then crochet 1 row of single crochets. After completing it, turn the piece. Work back to crochet the 2nd row of single crochets. Then switch colors. Turn the piece again and crochet the 3rd row. Start this row. Work 2 single crochets evenly. Then follow the pattern of skipping 1 stitch and crocheting in the next. Repeat this sequence with 1 chain between each single crochet. Finish the chains. Skip 1 stitch correspondingly underneath. Switch colors after completing. Work back to crochet rows 4 through 6. On row 6, crochet a picket. Finally, cut the yarn, leaving a yarn tail of 40-50 centimeters for sewing. There are 2 pocket decoration patches in total. The other patch can be crocheted using the same method. The patch crochet is now complete. Sew it downward onto the front piece position. I'll first use the finished piece to show the position, with the right side facing you, from bottom to top. For small size, locate row 10. For large size, locate row 12. Match the bottom row of the patch with this position. Pay attention to having the neat texture side facing up. The row with the picket is on the top. Then place the whole patch slightly centered. It can be placed a bit outward. About 4-5 pattern repeats away from the front band. Then use a stitch marker to secure it in place first. I won't demonstrate the securing part here. This is the sewing position for the patch. You can adjust the patch position according to your preference. Mark the position properly. Proceed to sew downward. I'll use a sample to demonstrate the sewing. Only these 3 sides need to be sewn. The top side doesn't need sewing. Use the reserved yarn from the patch for sewing. There's no specific requirement for the number of stitches or spacing, as long as it's sewn securely. Weave the final yarn tail inside the piece. Make it secure. You can weave in a few extra stitches. This way the pocket patch is sewn on. Attach the other patch using the same method. Sew it to the corresponding position. Pay attention to keeping both patches symmetrical. The method is the same. I won't repeat the demonstration. Up to this point, the patch section is explained. Next, sew on the buttons. Sew buttons on the side opposite the buttonholes. Overlap the edging positions of the front band. Find the corresponding position below the buttonhole. Make a mark. Move the buttonhole out of the way after finishing. The marked position on this side is the sewing position for the button. Find the right spot and start sewing. Pick up a strand that matches the color of the third round of the front band edging. I'm using a different color for demonstration here. Cut a piece of yarn. Pull out one strand from the yarn. Insert the thin needle. Pick up the button. Place it at the marked position. Match and sew it on. Leave a little yarn tail at the start. Sew through several times for a more secure hold. Secure the beginning and ending yarn tails by tying a knot after completion. Weave the remaining yarn tails into the piece. You can weave in a few more stitches. Handle the other yarn tail using the same method. Simply weave it to the wrong side of the piece. I won't demonstrate it here. This way, a button is securely sewn on. Attach the remaining buttons using the same sewing method. I won't repeat the demonstration. Finally, sew on the decorative strip. Here, you need to sew the decorative strip on the front band, the pocket patch, and the cuffs. The decorative strip on the front band is sewn on the inner side of the edging. For the edges of the piece, the decorative strip on the pocket patch is sewn on the bottom edge of the patch. Find the right position, then sew downward. Pick up the decorative strip. Let's start by preparing the edge of the decorative strip. Leave about 2 centimeters at this end. Fold it and sew it together. We'll remove the bead from the top first. Use scissors to cut the thread on the bead. Then take the bead out. Be careful not to cut the ribbon on the wrong side. Leave about 2 centimeters again. Fold it to the wrong side. And sew it in place. The bead can be removed here. Here, I'm demonstrating with a sample. Place the decorative strip at any corner of the edging. Here I'm placing it at the corner below the neckline. The decorative strip should match up with the edge pattern. Repeat. First refer to the chart and use the corresponding color yarn. Take a longer length and remove one strand before inserting it into a thin needle. I'm already prepared. The stitch count and spacing for sewing here are not specified. Just make sure it's sewn securely, mindful while sewing, to keep the piece and decorative strip flat. After sewing one side of the front band, leave about 2 centimeters of space going downward. Trim off the decorative strip. And similarly remove the beads from the top. Then fold it into the wrong side. Sew it in place. This completes one side of the front band. Later, pick up the decorative strip again. Leave about 2 centimeters of space. Sew along the pattern next to the edging. Sew the decorative strip in place. The sewing method is the same. I won't repeat the demonstration here. After finishing the front band, continue sewing below the pocket flap, on the inner side of the sleeve edging. Sew the decorative strip in place. That concludes the explanation of the decoration part. And with that, the entire jacket making is completely explained. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website, Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.